Good morning.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is Kathy Sipple with 219 Green Connect, and we will have as our guest this morning John Ervin. He is an ecologist and an entrepreneur here in Northwest Indiana, and is just a very knowledgeable person about a number of different environmental issues affecting our ecosystem here in Northwest Indiana. So we're very, very happy to have him here. John, are you able to hear me now?
Good morning, Kathy. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Since the first time that I met you, I have just been very impressed with your extensive knowledge of all things environmental, botanical, ecological, and so on. So I'd like to just take this show and make it an opportunity for you to share, whatever you would like to about your extensive background. And, perhaps of particular interest might be just what's going on seasonally, this time of year. We've got a really interesting ecosystem here in Northwest Indiana, and, would be real interested in finding out what you think is important and noteworthy.
Okay, well, that's very flattering. I try to be humble, but, when people keep saying things like that about me, I have little issues. Well, it's kind of an interesting year, isn't it? I don't believe I have ever seen a winter quite this warm. And
I don't think so either. Do you think it's global warming or something else at work?
I think it's global climate change, and whether or not it's anthropogenic or human-made, I really can't comment on that. I don't know enough.
Okay, there you go with your fancy words. I'm a big vocabulary fan. That's okay. Well, I love it. What was the word you just used though? Anthropogenic.
Anthropogenic. It means
man-made.
Yeah, man-made essentially.
Caused by
being
humans.
Beginnings. Right,
okay.
Genic being beginnings, anthro being man. So
okay.
And,
I had to break it down there for a second. I thought I might be able to digest it, but when I encounter a new word, I'm excited. Need to learn. Yeah.
Well, I'm a little excited too, so forgive me for being jargonistic.
That's quite all right. I believe me, I'm not going to hold you accountable for explaining all of global warming, but it definitely has been a very curious weather pattern lately.
Sure has. Yesterday was gorgeous, and and today is really beautiful. I've seen some things blooming already, some planted bulbs in people's landscapes, and I'm seeing buds swelling. I saw bald eagles at the Valparaiso Lakes last week.
Oh, so lucky. I've only seen them posted on Facebook so far, but that's incredible. That's just incredible.
Yeah. I have reason to believe that they're the same nesting pair that that were mentioned in the news the last couple of days, nesting at the state park.
Okay.
And,
you saw them. We're both right here in Valparaiso, Indiana, just about an hour from Chicago, and you actually saw them in the chain of lakes here on the north side of Valparaiso?
Yes, they were out on the ice scavenging for dead fish floating.
Wow.
And melting out of the ice, so that it's deep freeze out there, and they were just walking the edge of the ice, and one actually flew right past me. It startled me. And,
incredible.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I see them up there quite a bit along the shoreline, but this is the first time I've seen them at this lake.
That's just awesome. I mean, I think we are so incredibly lucky to have the bounty of nature that we've got, right here, literally in our backyard and figuratively for those of us without much yard. But it's just a short trip to get up to the Indiana Dunes or, one of the DNR properties that are nearby. And speaking of DNR, am I able to mention a little bit for our listeners to establish your credibility and your background? You have quite a lengthy career history with the park system and the DNR.
Not just the parks, the DNR. I've worked for a couple of different divisions of the DNR, as well as the Nature Conservancy over the last 20 years. But I guess I started in '88 for the Division of Entomology. So I've been lurking around natural areas for quite a while, and I've done other things, factories and landscaping and nurseries and you name it. Some people might say that I can't hold a job, but with as many experiences I've had. But
perhaps you're a Renaissance man. I think that's a more favorable way to cast it.
I like that. I like that very much.
Man of
I've just tried to be a student of nature as much as I possibly can, and try to. I guess the thing that makes me an ecologist is that I take all these observations and try to form a unified working theory for myself of what makes stuff work, and it really leads some interesting directions sometimes. I have some projects going on right now that 5 years ago I would have never thought I'd be even interested in. And,
can you tell us about some of those?
Well, I'm looking at some biofuel options. I'm looking at, I tend to work with a theory of coexistence. Are you familiar with the word parasitism and symbiosis? You're familiar with the word symbiosis, living together.
Yes, kind of.
Two or more critters living together.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's three ways that critters can live together. One can be a parasite on the other, where one is reaping all the benefits and actually hurting the other. Then there's a thing called commensalism, where one thing reaps a benefit, but it has no effect on the other. And then there's the one that I like, mutualism. And I guess my problem with the way things are worded these days, I hate the prefix eco because it's overused and it's abused by people who have no idea what it means.
It's the new greenwashing.
Yeah, exactly. Nice word. Yeah,
just slapping the green label on anything. Mm-hmm.
The term sustainability falls into that category as well, and I think the sustainability limits you to, at best, a commensal relationship. Human beings being reaping the benefits off of nature with really no benefit back to nature.
Without regard for how to make nature thrive. And
right. And so, so that mutualism, that way, I think that there's a way to develop a synergy between man and nature where we don't just break even, where both man and nature can coexist in a fruitful way. And so, that's where my projects lead me these days, looking at aquaculture, local foods. My chickens, my chickens more or less fed me this winter.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at, today I turned my compost for the first time in the spring. So just trying to integrate as many things as I possibly can, and then go on the interpretive route and trying to educate others of my successes and my failures in that line.
Right. So tell me a little bit about how this applies to your work with, you're getting into, can we talk a little bit more about what you're getting into? You've been with the DNR and now you're transitioning a bit more into the entrepreneurial world. Is that something you'd like to say more about?
Sure.
Or what's coming?
When I was with the DNR, well, just simply when I was with the DNR, I was taking care of nature preserves. I was restoring them. I was combating invasive species, doing a lot of public relations work. I was the ecologist for the Lake Michigan Coastal Program, a granting agency that was out of NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And that was really great. We did a lot of neat things, and I learned a lot of neat stuff. But I started seeing an opportunity to provide a greater impact, a better benefit for the last, 80 years of my life. I'm 45 now, so I figure I got at least 80 years.
Okay, good. I like it.
But where I'm going with this, I've already done a couple of consultations. I left the DNR in September of last year, and I've done a couple of consultations, and I've written a couple of grant proposals, and I'm working on a couple more. And I think that really what my benefit to this society and culture up in Northwest Indiana is to attempt to be a way to achieve that synergy, that coexistence with mutual benefit. And I do, doing that through functional things like rain gardens and rain barrels and helping landowners, do it correctly. And while doing natural areas restorations on their properties, woodland enhancements, ponds, prairies, that kind of thing, with an aesthetic view on it. I know that you've seen a few prairie plantings around it where, like, what were they thinking? And
right, where it looks kind of weedy or just overgrown or not appropriate for the landscape. And
right. I think there needs to be a curb appeal. You can't just be an extreme green person anymore these days, because there is a certain prudence for coexisting with our neighbors. In addition to the critters and the trees, we can't just be obnoxious.
Think about the aesthetics. Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
so trying to take into account as many things and providing that to landowners, and just trying to enhance the entire green footprint of Northwest Indiana, despite all of its infrastructure.
Okay. So would your typical client be a private landowner versus a larger entity, or could it be anybody?
It could be anybody. Mm-hmm. Right now I'm young enough into what I'm doing that I have enough time to chase down some of these more complex projects on my own time. But I think really where the real greening of an area comes from is from word of mouth between neighbors. So again, I return to the word interpretive. It's one of my goals in all of my projects, is that if you can't tell somebody about it, then why the heck do it? And it'll spread by itself. The ideas, the concepts, the innovations, and then just generating that installation. There's a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. There has been, and some subsidization of green ideas. Solar cells, for example, that wasn't all that, didn't pan out all that well. And of course, electric cars and things like that. But when it comes right down to it, if people can't do it easily at home and they don't have anybody to ask the dumb questions, in quotation marks, then it's, you can have all the innovations and technology you want. If it's not getting used, then why have it?
But sometimes you need a guide, you need a hand holder. How far away from my foundation should my rain garden be? What's the slope of the soil? How do I calculate, or how do I know what type of soil I have? Where do I get native plants? These kinds of things.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's just one aspect, but forest management, you name it. I have an opinion and experience in so many things that I'm kind of letting my clients decide what exactly they need from me at this point, and I might have a menu per se in the short term, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay. And what is the process? How does a landowner, I guess, A, know that they need to work with somebody like you or want to work with somebody like you? And B, once that interest is kindled and they decide to do that, what would be your process? Take me through that, what that looks like.
Okay. Pardon me a moment. I'm a firm believer in conflict. Okay, and conflict is not a dirty word. Conflict is an opportunity to enhance something. Because if there's nothing wrong, then you don't ever have to change anything. So there's always something wrong. So when a landowner comes to me with a problem, I have flooding on my property, my pond has algae, my forest looks like crud, I've got invasive species. So if wherever there's the problem, then my first goal is to educate them. Pardon me again. Part of springtime is allergies.
It's natural. It's a problem that can be cured.
Right. So first meeting with the landowner or the client, whatever their problem is, and trying to understand it from their perspective. And that's really the key, is to stand in somebody else's shoes immediately and not dictate to them what the norm is. There's a big tendency, landscape companies, and I'm not bad-mouthing landscape companies, I've worked for years for them, but they have a priority based on volume. And my priority is education. So the more intelligent and more educated my clients are, the more likely we can do bigger and better things as a team. And so that's a priority for me, and that's how you and I met. We started educating each other, and that's where it's at. And when it comes around, it'll come around. And I'm not going to get rich doing this stuff, but I certainly do hope that this concept, actually catches on, because other people can benefit from this kind of mentality, I believe.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about what some of the benefits are to the landowner, to the land, and to the whole region if these practices are adopted.
Okay. We've mentioned water several times in this conversation already. And Lake Michigan, we're being so close to Lake Michigan, we don't have an intimate feel for the way the rest of the world regards water. But we could find ourselves in a situation at some point. And, water is the key to everything. It's our soils, it's our plants, and we need to be smart with it. And so I guess the first thing we need to look at as a community, Valparaiso, all of Northwest Indiana, is how are we going to minimize how much crud are we putting into our rivers and ultimately Lake Michigan. So, and groups like Save the Dunes and their water program have been exemplary. They've spearheaded a lot of watershed management plans that give a lot of best management practices for individual landowners all the way up to industrial situations. So I'd start, telling people about water and the impact of and its importance on their own land, because if they are in a well, it means something. And it means something for their property value as well. So there is that. And then the vegetation itself, again, going back to that synergy, that if you take into account the actual personal benefits of installing a rain garden, for example, that actually turns into a habitat. And that habitat can be used by bees, other pollinators that are going to be helping out your garden. And they can also be a nesting place for birds, which are going to keep your pests down. All these different kinds of interactions that can branch off of one simple change. And that's the kind of things that if I get people thinking, that's really the thing. If people come up with better ideas than I do all the time, and I thrive on that because they're teaching me back. So that's the real key, is you see something natural like bee houses. If you start investing in bee houses, people have been putting up bat houses, they've been feeding their birds. But there are solitary wasps and solitary bees that are also important pollinators. Do you remember in the last few years, people's squash aren't setting, they're having problems getting stuff pollinated.
Right. And I've heard of bees actually being loaned to farmers to go out and pollinate crops.
Exactly. Well, they have them on semi-trucks to go pollinate orchards and such. And I think it's that mass bee production that, the bees are in bad shape. There's mites, and then there's other diseases and such that are really attacking the apis, the honeybee. But there's native bees. There's hundreds of native bees that range from ground nesting to tree nesting, mud daubers, and things like that. And people, initially they're like, bees and wasps, is this guy nuts? But you don't set it up at the front door next to the doorbell. You get it out to the garden where you can provide some habitat for them and some forage. And there's that symbiosis, that mutualistic symbiosis that instead of just having ties with one species, the honeybee. Now you're branching out to 10, 15 different pollinators, doing different things with different preferences. And in the process, them being around is helping natural species, native species, with their propagation as well.
So help out your own yard, help your neighbors at the same time. There's
exactly.
probably some overflow benefit.
There's a lot of overflow benefit. You know, the impact, it just spreads. It is people talk. And once people see something neat, they post it on Facebook these days, or Flickr, or YouTube. And, you know, that's the kind of thing that we need to continue fostering.
Thanks for the mention, too, about Facebook and Twitter, because I would like to just give a shout-out right now to say that if you'd like to get a copy of this archive, you can certainly do so at blogtalkradio.com/219GreenConnect. But you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter, also at 219GreenConnect. So we will post an archive of the show later, and also some contact information for how you can get a hold of John if you'd like to know more about his services and what he might be able to do for your yard or your natural problem that you're facing. So thanks for that reminder. I sometimes forget to do that.
Housekeeping is important.
Yes. Well, speaking of housekeeping, I actually installed a rain barrel, or this might be a yard keeping, at our home last year, and I found that one of the benefits was truly a reduction in my water bill, my monthly water bill throughout the summer months. I mean, when you're not having to pay to use water out of the tap, but you just use the rainwater you've collected from your own gutters and downspouts, that was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, they are, and there's been several clinics lately. Save the Dunes put one on, and I believe that I heard through the grapevine that there's going to be something coming up on the 20th at Sunset Hill.
That's right. I actually, I probably don't need the workshop, but I did want another rain barrel, so I signed up for the one at Sunset Hill through the Porter County Waste Reduction Management organization, and their website, if you'd like to find out more about their program, is itmeanstheworld.org, and I'll post that on our Facebook page and Twitter as well. But very, very affordable program. It's $45 to attend the workshop, and that includes, I believe it's a 55-gallon rain barrel. It's a terracotta, food-grade quality plastic, and, attractive looking. It's not the top, very, very fancy one, but it's certainly something anybody would be proud to have in their backyard, and, blends really nicely and naturally with a variety of habitats.
Right. Rain barrels are really neat, and we're doing that's another project I have going on is different methods of capturing more rainwater. And but may I give a shout out here, since you're giving a shout out?
Sure. This is all about shouting out. I want to connect people to the resources and news and events that are going to help them get more green in Northwest Indiana. So anything you've got to support that is a welcome shout out.
Okay. I was appointed to the Porter County Wildlife Advisory Board this spring, or this winter, I guess, and we will be having an Earth Day event. I don't believe that we've settled on exactly the venue. It'll either be Sunset or it'll be at the Expo Center, one or the other. But coinciding with Earth Day, and we are putting, again, a special emphasis on the Porter County Humane Society and also Independent Cat Society will be there as well. And so, given some of the situations that we've seen this winter with a lady with over 100 dogs, I guess what was the last count? It's a good cause. We can use all the help we can get to take care of these stray animals, and so just wanted to give that out. And there's talk about tree sales as well. So Porter County Wildlife Management Advisory Board.
Great. Well, you know what? I will actually see you there at Earth Day, because I also do a lot of work, as you know, with Northwest Indiana Green Drinks, and we have decided to get a booth for the Northwest Indiana Earth Day celebration. which I've got down on my calendar, Saturday, April 21st from 9 to 4 at the Porter County Expo Center in Valparaiso. So,
yep.
And again, it's the same website that's actually also hosted by Porter County, let's see if I can get their name right, Waste Reduction Management. That might not be exactly perfect, but they are also the ones hosting that, the same people who host the Rain Barrel workshops. And you can find out information on how to sign up for that at itmeanstheworld.org. And I'll go ahead and post that on our
Do you remember how much it costs?
Well.
I think it's real tiny bit of money.
I think it's
like $20 or something.
Yeah, there's a sliding scale, I believe, for nonprofit organizations. It's lower, and I think I've got here registering for one booth, one table, and two chairs is $35 for a nonprofit. If you want electric, there's an upcharge for that. If you want to be on a bingo card that kind of drives traffic to your booth, there's an upcharge for that. So yeah, very, very affordable. Basic rate $35 for a nonprofit. So I will be there with Green Drinks, and if I can give a shout-out for Green Drinks, too, we also have a Facebook page. That is facebook.com/NWI Green Drinks. And if you haven't heard of Green Drinks, it is kind of a fun event to come to. We have a chapter here in Valparaiso. We're one of 822 cities all over the globe that meet for regular meetups about environmental topics. So we usually meet the third Monday of each month, generally at Cornucopia Coffee right on Lincoln Way in Valparaiso. For our March meeting, though, it'll be Monday, March 19th, and it'll be at 7 o'clock rather than our usual 6. And we'll be meeting at the Porter County Administration Building and hosting an environmental debate, actually, between Valparaiso High School and Chesterton High School. And we'll be talking about the Keystone XL pipeline. Good or bad idea. Not sure which high school gets which side, but that should be kind of an interesting topic, listening to impassioned, high schoolers already adopting, some serious thought and serious ways to process these tough environmental issues. And then we'll have a pizza party and question and answer session at Greek's Pizzeria immediately following in Valpo. So sorry to take so much of your interview time, because we've only got a little bit more than 2 minutes left. But yeah, I just, I'm all about giving people places to connect, whether it's online, in person, whatever. I think a good combination of all of those is best. If we live in vacuums in front of our computer screens, not really a great way to connect to nature. But sometimes, as you said yesterday, being able to participate on a radio show from the beauty of your own home and, your own phone is nice, saves you gas, and so I like a mix. But,
I'm sitting under my oak trees today in the wind. I hope the wind hasn't blustered too much on the phone.
Oh,
but,
that's
just
nice.
It beats sitting in a stuffed radio studio.
Absolutely.
So,
very nice office you've got there.
Thanks for the opportunity and having me on. I look forward to going to the Green Drinks, and go ahead and put my email address on your site.
Good.
And I enjoy
you want
any
to go
kind of
ahead
question.
and say that address just so we've got it here on the audio as well?
Sure. PrimalElegance@live.com, PRIMAL_elegance, ELEGANCE @live.com.
I really look forward to seeing great things coming from Primal Elegance. I like the name, and I think it'll appeal not to just those Martha Stewart type gardeners, but also the more masculine people out there that might want to adopt, some of these practices. So I think you're a great...
Well, we're doing neat stuff up here.
Yeah,
so.
Great person to lead that charge. Well, we really appreciate it, John. And anything else you'd like to say? We've got just about 30 seconds left. Any tips or sign-off?
Get your garden... We got a break right here. Get your garden tilled. Get your garden tilled. Put a little sugar in the soil for the yeast.
I love that. Sugar in the soil. That is very, very interesting. So that gets
just
all the microbes happy and gets them started up. Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. You heard it here, folks. Put a little sugar on your soil from Primal Elegance. John Ervin, ecologist and entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Kathy Sipple, and this has been another episode of 219 Green Connect.